Hey, welcome to the conversation. You're with Andy Mason and Nate Brown. And today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, Jesus, and the future of you and your business. Now, I'm going to introduce Nate, and it's going to be a fun conversation. I get to walk with Nate as a part of a small group. We've done that for well over a few years. Now, we're going to find out what qualifies him to even talk about this because he is. And you're going to leave with some real ground-based understanding of what is it not, what to be concerned about, what not to be concerned about, how to leverage this going forward, and then where to go to for more. But heads up, Nate is going to be leading a breakout session at the upcoming Heaven and Business Conference. That's February 2024. Jump onto the heaveninbusiness.com website and you get to interact over a bunch of these things. But Nate and I were just talking. My background, just so you know, is agriculture. So sheep, beef, dairy. I was going to be a veterinarian. And in the process of wanting to become a veterinarian, I got to spend a day with a vet to decide whether I liked it. And all day long, we did AI. Now, it's just a completely different AI. It's a long rubber glove and it's pregnancy testing cows, and you can work out the rest. But that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Nate, welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what qualifies you to talk about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and business.
Awesome. Yeah, no turkey basters on this AI that we're talking about. My name is Nathan Brown. I've been co-founder, CTO of a technology company, Escape Velocity Systems, and we do supply chain software. So I've been in this space all my life, coming up from the late 90s until now. Get a lot of gray hairs in the beard. And was really excited to see what's happening with the transformer technology, the GPTs of the world, as many people know, ChatGPT. Having a great time. Really excited, Andy, to break some of this down and see if we can pull some usable stuff out of the ether. As you know, there's been a lot of hype, a ton of propaganda, and all kinds of, some fear-based propaganda all over the board. And there's been some utopia optimism flying around, and we're going to see if we can pull out what is God's perspective? What does He have for us with this technology?
Yeah, and just so people know that Nate is actually credible. Some of the companies that you're working with, are you allowed to even say that?
Probably. I mean, some of the largest companies in the world, you guys know what it is. We're in enterprise supply chain, so people that make stuff, ship stuff.
Yeah. And you guys do the software, the chief technology operations, designing the technology that goes inside and runs these very, very large companies and delivering product, ensuring things are where they should be. So he knows what he's talking about, is what we're trying to say. So Nate is also a follower of Jesus. That's a legitimate walk. I've gotten to see that. There's a ton of stories. If you can scroll back over some of the Heaven and Business content, you'll probably come across his story, We Divorced Poverty. We're not going to talk about that today, but that was a great story. So Nate, let's just dive right in. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, what is it?
So there was a breakthrough a few years ago with Google. They put out a paper on this technology that was called transformer technology. So that was an enabling piece that now allows us to have something like ChatGPT. ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That probably means nothing to most people out there. But the idea is that this technology learns and it can generate new content based on everything it's learned. That's out there. And the key there, Andy, is that if you imagine there's a divide between people and computers. We speak English, the computer speaks binary, zeros and ones. And up until now, the humans have had to learn how to speak computer to go over to computer land and get the computer to do something. This breakthrough technology now allows the computers to understand human language. It allows the computers to understand meaning, not just words. So, for example, if you're doing a Google search, it will search for those keywords in the content of the universe it knows about. But from GPT's perspective, it's not just trying to match words, it's looking for the actual meaning behind the words. And it has a really good way, a data structure to understand that meaning. And it's kind of a large topic, but that was a big breakthrough with ChatGPT, or what they call these large language models.
So if I summarize it in an agricultural terms, from a shepherd, I'm not. I got to be careful how I say that. Just so if I'm hearing it right, it's basically rather than in ones and zeros and being told this is how you should respond. Now the computer, the software program, whatever that may be, can actually think for itself. It's got a somewhat of a brain. Is that what you're saying?
Uh, Somewhat. We've got to be careful. There are a lot of similarities between like the human brain and cognitive process and how these work, and there are also some things that are totally not the same. So essentially, what ChatGPT does is, given all of the human history that it has absorbed and trained on and encoded in this, meaning, um, you can give it some start of a prompt, and it basically runs through and just predicts the next word. So when it's talking back to you, in some ways, it's doing it the same way that we're talking. When you start a sentence, you may not know how you're going to finish it. You start the sentence, and then there might be a well, as you think, and you kind of collect the next word. It's doing the same thing, and it's iterating until it completes a sentence. Now, with all of the preceding content it has, it's just looking for that next word, and there's a series of probabilities. So you might have very vanilla English, like if I said how are, the next word would probably be you. But there are also a lot of things of lower probabilities that it might be. So this is how the model can be tuned to be more creative. You can dial up the creativity or dial it down. But in some ways, Andy, that I think we can start by just demystifying this thing. It's not Tron, it's not Skynet, it's not a brain. It is simply a machine that predicts the next word given a series of words that you feed it, and it keeps doing that until it's had enough and it's given you an answer.
Yeah, and I mean, so it's not to be afraid of. I just love that. Just so let's just go right there. We're talking to people that love Jesus, love business, integrating the two. Anything that's of fear that gets people to draw back is just like you're probably of the wrong spirit. What would you say to people that are saying, "Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. It's coming. There's something to be afraid of. Stay away from it." What would you say to them?
I'll say if you take Chat GPT and take the Hebrew letters and add up the numbers, it does not equal 666. So it's just, I look at it like this. Throughout technology, people have had the same reaction. And especially in the last 50 years, Christians have had this Luddite reflex, like new technology equals New World Order, mark of the beast, this is the end. And we've got to get away from that reflex. So if you think of technology moving forward, it's a stack that begins at the lowest levels. You have a mining ore and refining ore. I have writing, I have the wheel and fire, and you build up electricity, circuits, all of these things. This is just another layer on the top of that stack that is a tool. And it can give people leverage. It's a tool for generating content leverage. And yes, it's novel. And sometimes the fact that it's novel, we haven't seen anything that does this before, makes people afraid. Because the reality is that, okay, there's a non-zero chance that this could be used for bad things. In fact, we can almost guarantee it will be used for bad things.
Yeah.
But what we can also do ourselves is guarantee that it will be used for good things by actually doing things with it, doing good things with the technology.
Yeah. So it's a predictive tool based on probability and a set of predetermined or trained meaning. And I mean, we're not going to dive too far into that for the sake of this call because we could just spend hours. What does that mean? Jump on to people want more. Jordan Peterson has got some great conversations on this where you can deep dive for hours and hours and hours. But we, at a base level, it's a tool. It's a predictive tool. It's been trained and its users probably, it was designed by engineers. Just remember that one, everybody. It wasn't designed by a relationship guru. It was designed by engineers. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nate. And it's not a brain, and it's not the end of the world, and it's not a one world order. And there's a whole other things that it's not. Yes, I am still talking. This is actually the real Andy talking to the real Nate. Um, and if you got problems with that, then just call me or text me to verify that. But tell me some of the real life benefits of this, then, Nate, adapting or adopting that into my business or my ministry or whatever it is that I'm working with, either as a business owner or leader, as an employee, as a manager, as a dad. What are some of the benefits?
Sure. So I could take a minute of your voice, go to 11 Labs, run that sample in there, and generate Andy Mason talking content and mimic you. So you're right. How could you guarantee this is actually us talking? No, the benefits, I think there are a couple layers to this. One is, how do we integrate this for personal use? And what I found in our company, that earlier this year, we put out a mandate to say, look, guys, this is, if we were farming, if that was our business, the tractor just appeared in the store. And if you don't learn how to drive a tractor, you may be the fastest action hoe operator in Gilpin County, but you doesn't matter anymore. Like, you need to learn how to use a tractor. So we started to just get everybody playing. And when people saw what it could do for them, that started demystifying it. So, for example, we have to put out executive status reports on projects. So you could put it in and it can refine it. It can clean up the language. It can find logic errors. It can find holes. It could tweak the tone. So if you have an important communication, you can put it in there and give it some bullet points, and it will make the tone exactly the way you want it. And then you could say, okay, that's great, but shorten it. So we have people using it for communications, writing up documents, and it's great for legal analysis. We did some experiments with, hey, we're going to look at this contract, and we'll say, chat, tell me all the areas of liability that you see are potential holes in the contract. And in one case, it gave us back 5 specific things about, multi-page, insignificant contract. We said the same thing to our attorney, who said the exact 4 of the 5 things, but missed the last thing, right? The attorney. So when we say leverage, it's in a couple dimensions. One is it allows people who are competent experts in a topic to do more of that, to leverage that capability, like horizontal leverage on what they know. It also allows the average Joe to operate in areas that they're not experts in. So I'm not a lawyer, but I can be fairly competent around analyzing and summarizing contracts, finding holes in a way that doesn't replace a lawyer, but it's a really good first cut. There was a story a while ago about some guy with his dog was having consistent problems, been to the vet several times. The vet was not finding the problem. The guy just took the blood analysis from his dog, put it in ChatGPT. It gave him 4 things. And the 4th thing was the thing the vet did not try, and that was the problem.
Wow.
Right? So it's not a doctor, but it's really good at looking at all the history and
It's
giving
an
ideas.
engineer. It's like encompassing a massive amount of data.
It is. And this is, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me personally, for those listening and watching, I've played with it after talking to Nate and a bunch of others, and it's free. This is ridiculous. I took a series of audio messages that we'd spoken on Hearing God. I then converted those to transcript, copied and pasted the transcript, and then said, summarize this. Well, actually, I gave it context. I said, chat, you are a professional copywriter, and been in the business for a couple of decades, and you're world class. So I gave it context of who it was, and I said, rewrite this in the language of a 12th grader. So anybody could read this, and it spat it out. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really good. And then I said, rewrite it in the language and the tone of Brene Brown. And then I thought, this is funny. Then I said, I got it to rewrite it in the language of Bill Johnson. And it's funny because as long as there's enough data in the web cloud, wherever out there, it can actually rewrite things. So I've done that. And then I've also used it. I said, Chat, you are a marketing, you're the director of marketing for a global company. And write for me a strategy. And now I haven't necessarily applied any of those, but I'm learning, just like what you said, is by using it, you demystify it and you start to realize, wow, I could do this. Now, at the same time, if you're a college student watching this and you use Chat GPT to write an essay, you will get kicked out of college. Because what I know is with college, I've got 3 kids in college, they have to sign a document saying that they will not use this to write the articles that they're using for some of their events or activities. Otherwise, they get kicked out of college. So it's, yeah, don't mess with it if you're not supposed to. For what? Use your brain. Learn how to use your brain. So I
I
love
don't
what
know
you
if that
said.
makes me a bad parent, Andy, but we told our daughter, she wrote a paper and we said, use chat. She put it in chat and it spit out. We're like, wow, this is really good. We just told her, we said, look, you can use it, but you have to manually integrate its suggestions into your paper
That's
so
it.
you learn. It was amazing. Like the vocabulary, the way to phrase things, it was so good. And she actually learned by using chat when she manually put that into her writing. And it was tremendous. So I think schools that are not, it's kind of like a calculator. If you went to school and they said no calculators, I mean, that's so old school. That's like 80s, right? And we would sneak them in our little watch with
Yeah.
the 12 button Casio watch or whatever.
So good. So there's some cool benefits. What about other benefits, Nate?
So conceptually, here's one of the principles that we talk about in our company is it's easier to edit than to create. So if someone creates something and you're looking it over, like take it easy on them and don't just nitpick and hammer them because it really is easier to be that second editor. Well, chat can do both. It's really good at generating the initial cut that you edit, and it can also edit what you do.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that people are getting a lot of use out of it is they're having it create content and then they're having it edit and critique itself.
Wow.
So you can feed its own content back to it and say, find me some flaws in this, find areas to improve this language, and it will do both. So as far as a time saver for whatever content you're generating, like you did with your outline, you can have it give you an initial cut, and then you can just be the editor and still own the content, but save yourself a ton of time in the process.
Yeah. What are the arguments against this? Um,
Yeah.
you are a critical atheist and you disagree with this. What are the critical arguments that you have about anything? And so, for someone that's creating content, blogs, writing books, but not just that, marketing content, looking at systems and processes for your, please write me. You are a marketing, no, you are a, you're own a manufacturing company. It's been in operation for 25 years. It's in this industry. Write me a policy and procedures manual that does this outcome for the purposes of this. Spits it out. So it's pretty amazing what you can do.
Yeah, we're using it now for SOC compliance, and it's basically a bunch of hoops you jump through and a bunch of documentation and policies, and it's shredding that stuff. Super good at it. I'll give you another example. I was at a bank doing some transaction, and they said, well, you need to show me that your company owns the car. So I pulled out my laptop and I said, chat, I need an asset contribution agreement for this kind of car, this VIN number, blah, blah, blah. Spit it out. I dropped my signature on the document and then emailed it right to them, sitting at the table right there. And it was really good. So super good at that stuff.
So it straight out benefits, saves you time,
Saves you time.
increases understanding. So if I'm really smart, it actually can edit, critique, and actually take me deeper. If I'm lower in understanding, I can upload a book or a chapter and say, can you summarize this in the language of a 12-year-old agricultural shepherd from New Zealand so that I'd understand it? And all of those things it can do. So that's really, really good. Any other benefits?
I would put a caveat in there, Andy. Like you talked about using the free one, there's 3.5. If you go to chat, openai.com, but 4 is much better. So if 3.5, I would call a midwit, and 4, I would say, wow, this is a really sharp.
And so for those that
And
are not with it, like 3.0 is version 3.0, but there's actually, or 3.5, there's actually a 4.0 now. And is that a paid one, is it?
you pay like $20 a month, but there's also Claude AI, which is pretty good. I've been tinkering with it somewhat, not quite as sharp as Chat 4 for my use case, but still really good. And so far, Claude is free. They have a version 2 that's coming out. But if people, so I know some people that have played with the free version and said, it's not that great, and they've kind of given up, said it's not there yet. But if you're one of those people, just sign up, pay your $20, you'll get that money back in time saved. Use the 4.0 version, and it's much better.
Okay, so that's cool. What do I need to be, anything to be actually concerned about? I mean, we've already touched it. Like, if you're studying, do not use this to write your essay. Like, you might want to use it for some free work, but do not, because you could get kicked out of your institution. So that's no brainer. What other things should we be concerned
So
about?
you've probably heard, a lot of people have heard about, a lawyer used this to prepare a court filing, and Chat cited it. They call it hallucinating. It made up some case citations. And part of that, Andy, like you said, you can't just use it and use that content out of the box. You still have to use your brain,
Yeah.
because it will. And this is kind of under that personal category of which should you watch out for. Yes, it will make up stuff because it's just generating words. It is pretty good, but once you understand that what it is and the tool it can be used for, it's not an encyclopedia of facts. It's not, you can use it for legal analysis or preparing court. If you're an attorney, you would use the heck out of this thing, but you're not going to say, Chat, give me this thing, and then just give it to the judge. That would be
So
stupid.
check the citation.
Using it properly.
Leave your brain on. This is going to be great to summarize, edit, write, but you still need to double check everything.
And some
and we
people,
experienced the same already as well.
sure, and some people say, well, that proves that it's not useful. It doesn't work. And I would say to those people, no, it proves that you don't know what it does and what it's for. So you could have a hammer and say, well, this is not good at screwing this thing in. Well, it's a hammer. And so once you understand what it does well, then you can find it tremendously useful, but you do have to know the boundaries of what it's good at and what it's not good at.
Yeah, super cool. Any other concerns that you would have about it?
Uh,
What about the whole, like you said already, you could go in and you could upload my voice and you could get Chat to write a program that it sounds like it's Andy Mason talking and do sound bites.
Sure. And we've just got to become more skeptical about what we consume. When you look at the pitfalls of the technology, what people can do with AI, you're also going to see the antidote for those come out. And a lot of those antidotes will use AI.
Yeah.
So, if you need to prove provenance or authenticity of a piece of media, you could use the blockchain. You're going to start to see some of these solutions coming out,
Right,
to verify authenticity because of the problems that AI is introducing.
yeah. So that's cool. What about from a spiritual perspective? We've talked about keep your brain on. Number one. Number two, the Word of God. There is no shortcut to reading the Word of God and engaging with the person of the Word. As believers engage with this, and if you're a lazy believer, it would be the same. If you're a lazy technologist, lazy lawyer, you could just do this and pretend. It doesn't matter. It's a tool. But from a believer, any thoughts, comments, questions that you would have in regard to that?
Oh gosh, I one of the things I played with Andy is taking a news feed of headlines and feeding those into Chat and saying, give me a Bible verse that brings hope to this situation. And this is where I really saw how it pulled the meaning out, because it would it wouldn't just match words to find a Bible verse that had the same words. It would pull out a Bible verse that actually spoke hope. So it was good at that. In some ways, I know pastors, they may not tell you, I know pastors are using this to make like make their sermons. Like that's reality. So it's happening. Some of the pitfalls are the thing has no conscience. Like it's a brain without a soul. Like there's no conscience behind it. I have found it to be shooting pretty straight when it comes to theological or Christian. It definitely has an ideological bias when you bump into certain boundary places.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just discussing scripture and theology, I found it to be very just straight shooter,
Yeah.
which is cool. But again, some of this, Andy, like when you look at the whole culture, Instagram and everything, where we've turned our brain into consumption mechanisms, and we're starting to give up the ability to generate thought.
Yeah.
So having chat give me theological content, which it could do to infinity, is not a substitute for me just listening. Like being quiet and letting what the Spirit of God is doing in me to actually be the generator of the things that I'm thinking on and doing. I would say that's a larger problem, not just with AI, but the way we're structuring our technology in general. It's creating a whole population of people that only respond to input,
Yeah.
that are not creating their own input. So quiet time becomes more important. Turning off the technology becomes more important.
Yeah. I'm loving that. I mean, I'm doing a retreat in daily life this year, next 9 months. St. Ignatius spiritual exercises, been around since the 1500s, and obviously I'm not praying to Mary. I'm praying to God. With this meeting with a spiritual director every week, and it is so good. Like the Spirit of God is so hungry to meet with you, talk with you, lead you, guide you. There is no substitute. And we need to be more and more leaning into him and his word and his ways as we discern the times. So I'm loving what you're saying. And one of the things that
So I'm curious. I'm curious. So how much time would you spend, like, without saying anything or putting the headphones in and putting on the worship, just listening in quiet to the Holy Spirit?
it it would vary from day to day, but there could be, and and for me, like I feel frustrated sometimes because if I don't stop and write down, um, then I'll forget. So I feel like every time I write it down, it gets broken up. And then I lost my journal, and so then I was writing it on my laptop. But then as soon as I use my laptop, I get distracted real easy. So I would say minimum 5 minutes at a time, and then that could range up to an hour. Um,
Funny thing has been happening, like you said, even the reflex of pulling out the iPhone and putting on some worship music, and that's time with God. And I started leaving the phone in the bedroom. And then I'm like, I'm just going to sing. And the only thing that comes to mind is like these really old, like 1980s stuff that we would sing way back then. And I'm singing these like old cheesy songs. It just feels more authentic, though.
yeah,
There's something about that I'm personally starting to discover, but it's hard. You
yeah.
get a thought that you feel like is God prompted. Like, I got to write that down, pull out Evernote and start. And I've just short circuited the whole process. I need to figure that out, Andy. Gosh.
Yeah, and but this is the beauty. This is why I'm doing a retreat in daily life. So it's an hour a day. I've got the accountability of meeting with a spiritual advisor, where I talk about what I'm hearing, what I'm learning, what I'm seeing. It's founded in scripture and some guided exercises or thoughts. And but the beauty is it's in daily life. It's not, I'm not going away on a sabbatical. I'm not going outside of my daily practices. I'm still dealing with, people coming to stay, kids going back to school, spending an hour and a half in an MRI machine today, getting body parts sorted out. it's all in the middle of it, and that's a part of it. I guess that's what I'm called to do, is lead people to do this in the midst of life, not separate yourself. And that's what Jesus did. Like, it's as you walk, as you drive, as you do these things. And circling back around, ChatGPT can help me then with what I'm doing in whatever it is. It's like, give me, hey, ChatGPT, give me 20 Bible verses on discernment. And then you take those, walk away from that, get your Bible out and turn those
Mm.
pages. There's something that this will never replace. It's the same as I can have a conversation with my wife over Zoom when she was in New Zealand and I was here. Now, and we're married, and like, there is nothing like being in person. Now, that's, I've got touch as a love language, so that's one part of it. But it's just the interaction, the dialogue, the 3D, the feelings, the emotions. And we're called to have all of the senses trained and be alive and alert. So, Nate, we could carry on talking like this, and we are going to have more of a conversation. heavenandbusiness.com/events. Jump on to the upcoming Heaven and Business annual conference in Atlanta, and Nate's going to be there. There's going to be a bunch of other seasoned, mature believers who walk with God, doing excellent in business and engaging over some real relevant topics of how do we integrate faith into technology and AI, and what does that even look like? And Nate, for somebody that says, I want to learn more about this, you would say just jump onto openai.com, is it? What is even the link? And just
OpenAI.com is the company if you want to use chat. And you can use a 3.5 and just play around with it.
free, just
That's the free one, but just realize you're not getting the best stuff. That's the best way to do it, Andy. I mean, there's so much, marketing content, how to write prompts and all this stuff. Just play with it. Forget all that and just play with it and start to apply it to daily things. I need to write a formal communication for something, and help me to do this. Then get a feel for it, because I think that's the best way. That's what I have seen helps people engage more than anything else.
yeah, it's great. Write me a plan for some of the same things that people are already using it. If you write a Google prompt, that is a form of AI. Is that correct?
If you write a Google prompt,
And I ask a question.
yeah, kind of. I would
Well,
say maybe two specific things, Andy, that might help people. One, ask it to help you plan a vacation. Have an itinerary, tell it what specific things you want, give it the area or the place you're going, and work with it to plan a vacation. Number two, you can work with it on recipes. Hey, I'm looking for a recipe like this. Okay, I would like to spice it up a little bit. Make this dish as it might be served like in Manhattan at an Asian fusion restaurant. And it'll, like, just mess with it. So recipes and vacation planning are two great ways that people can really start to engage the tool.
yeah, and I love it. As a business leader of a technology company, software company, you told your employees, go and get familiar with it. And as they got familiar with it, it demystified it, and they started to realize what they could do with it, which is so good. So, Nate, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and I know that there is so much more. Let's see the kingdom advance and be a part of it, and actually jump on the front end rather than wondering what happened and why everybody is doing something different that I got left behind. So thank you, Nate.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you so much.